Friends, welcome back to Cyberscripters. In this session of Python learning, we are going to learn about decorators. You have seen decorators in our last session while we were doing object-oriented programming, and we use some decorators like class method, static method. So there are many decorators in Python that you can use to accomplish certain things. But you should know what are the decorators and how to create them if required. So in today's session, we are going to look at decorators. So let's just go ahead and create one Python file called decorators. Okay. So decorators is a bit involved subject, and you would have to concentrate on this subject, and this would require a bit of practice as well. But if you practice it well, it is not that difficult as well. So before going into decorators, you will have to understand functions well. So let's say if I define a function called test. So this is my very simple function that doesn't do anything. Function test. If I print this test, what I will get? See, I'm not executing it. So there is difference between executing a function and so if I do it like this, I'm actually executing that function. But here I'm not executing that function. I'm not calling that function, right? I'm just trying to print it what it is. See what I'm getting is function test at a memory location. So that means what it means is function is treated as an object and it has a memory location. And anything that has a memory location and you have a reference to it, you can pass to something else. Right? So that is different. Let me just tell you the difference between executing and passing as well. So if I have a statement like this, this is test function. So if I'm just putting test, it is not going to execute it. But if I do it this way, then I'll get a completely different output. Let me keep the first output here so that you will see the difference. Let's print the separator. And now I am doing is print test. Let's see what happens. See, this is my first call, which does not execute the function. It is just printing what the test is. In the second call, I am actually calling and executing that function. So I'll get this. This is a test function, you'll get it. And since we are not returning anything, I'm getting none. Right? So now let us do one thing. Let us pass this function to another function. Let's say another function called def log and execute. It takes a function and it just executes it. Now what happens? See, what are we doing here? What we are doing here is I have defined another function log and execute. It takes a function as an argument, and whatever function you pass to it, it just executes it. And I'm passing this function to this function. Now let's see what happens. See, we are not calling this test directly, right? Let's see, like got this string. This is test function. It means this function was executed, but how? See, what we did was the reference to test was passed to this function and it executed it. Now, why is it useful? let's say I want to log something. Whatever functions are getting executed, I want to log them, right? So let's just do one thing. Let's just import date time so that we can print date and time of execution as well. Let's just define a variable called log is equal to true. Now see, everything changed. What I'm saying is if log, then print f executing nc undot. This will print the name of the function and let's just print time as well. See now what happens? Now what happens is if instead of calling test directly, if you call log and execute and pass the test as a function, it would execute this code segment first and then it would call this function. Let's see what happens. See what I'm getting now. Executing test. We can say function. Okay. So executing function test at time. This is the test function. So this is the true power of Python, wherein functions are treated as objects and you can pass one function to other and you can make use of it. This is the basic understanding of decorator. This is what decorators does. So you will have to make sure that you understand these things very clearly. If you don't understand this part, you are not going to understand decorators. Once again, what I'm doing, I have a function log and execute, which takes input as a function. And what it does is it print this statement, print the timing of the execution, and then executes it. That is the only thing it is doing. Now I have another function test which I want to execute. So what I'm doing is I'm calling log and execute. I'm passing name of this function as an argument to log and execute. What log and execute would do? If this particular variable is true, then it would print this statement and then it would execute whatever function reference we have passed. You should be absolutely clear on this. Unless you understand this part, you are not going to understand decorators. So now let's see how a decorator is designed. Okay, now let's get to the actual content that we want to discuss with the decorators. Okay, so let's define a very simple decorator which doesn't do anything. So whenever you want to print something, you want separators there, right? So for example, I have a function called hello, which just print hello. Now I want a line of asterisk on top of it and a line below this. So what I can do? I'll line another function def my deco. It takes function as an argument. I am defining another function wrapper inside it. It could be any name. So it's not important that you have to name it as wrapper. You can name it as inner, you can name it as anything. Now what it does is print. Let's print or separator. Okay, so what we have done, we have a regular function called hello, and we have another function called myDeco. Now, what is myDeco doing? MyDeco is taking function as an argument and adding just two separator lines, and it is returning a wrapper. It is returning this function. So, what it is doing basically, it is taking function as an argument and it is returning function as an and it is returning function. So, if I say x is equal to myDeco hello, what it is doing? So my deco hello. So what we are doing is we are passing this hello, this function to my deco. And then what my deco is doing is it creating a new function and returning it, returning wrapper, which is stored in X. Now X is a function that is written right from my deco. So what is in X? X is wrapper. Can I execute this? Yes, I can execute it like this. Let's see what happens. See, this is what we got. So what happened here? What happened was I passed the function to deco and deco returned me a new function. That function has three lines and I executed it. I can very well do it like this. So instead of this part, I can also do my deco hello and just execute directly whatever I'm getting. See, I will get the same thing. I hope this is clear. This is the basics of decorator. This is how decorators work. What decorators does is it takes a function as an input and returns another function which you can execute. So now, see, you can do it this way. You can store it in a variable and you can execute or you can call it directly. But instead, there is a better way of doing it. If you say at the rate my deco on top of a function, that function is going to exactly do what your these two lines or this one line is doing. So now see, oops, what happened? Let me check. Oh, we have not called hello. We need to call it. See what we have got. So basically, this is my decorator. What decorator does is when you say at the rate my deco, this is what is happening. Rather, this is what is happening. It sends that particular function to your decorator as an argument, and whatever it is written is executed in the next step. So if I see this part, these two steps are happening using this decorator. So when I say my deck on any function, this particular function hello would be passed as the argument and whatever is written will get executed. Yeah, I told you in the beginning that it is an involved subject. So particularly I see this kind of questions coming in the interview when You pass first level of interview, second level of interview, and somebody wants to understand, do you really understand Python? At that point in time, at that advanced level, they would go into decorators. And if you understand decorators, then the interviewer would be satisfied that you understand functions well. Because unless you understand functions and the written types, you won't be able to appreciate how decorators work. So again, these are the two things that decorators helps you to omit or see if I can use it this way as well. But then the code doesn't look that good. See the code. See, look at this code. How clean it looks. So that is the benefit of decorators. Now, I hope you understand what are decorators and how to use them. Let's write a use case where you would use it actually. Let's say I have a function called test, and here what I'm doing is for I in range 10,000. So I'm writing a complicated function. So I to the power 2, let's say we divide it by 7, and then let's 2, and then again let's do it. Now I am writing this kind of complicated function because I want to time that this kind of function. What I want is I want to know how much time I am spending on this function. How do I do it? So let's write our timer. I'm writing another use case, another definition, another function called timer. This would be your decorator. So decorator would always have two functions. So what we are doing is start is equal to time dot. I think we need to import time. Okay, now let's look at time. Time underscore. We want to print 0 seconds. Now we'll executing it. Difference is equal to time dot ns dot minus start and return. What we are doing? See, I told you, decorator is a function which takes input as a function and it returns a function. So what we are doing is we have an inner function called wrapper. What it does is it stores the start time of the function. So what we are doing is we are doing storing the time in nanoseconds in this variable start. Then we are executing this function and then we are calculating the difference. So this is my end time. We already have start. So that gives me difference in nanoseconds, right? Well, let's call test. Nothing happens. Why? Because this test is not returning anything, right? Now let's put here at the rate timer and let's just print. See what is happening here. We are getting exactly the nanoseconds that is taken by this program to execute this statement for 10,000 times. See, when I write my program, whatever small function I am writing, I always test time because I want my programs to be optimized. So I keep on checking each and everything again and again to make sure that I'm utilizing each and every CPU cycle. So this is one way of doing it. So now you don't have to do anything. You just put this at the rate timer on top of any function and you will get how many nanoseconds that particular function is using. Again, how is it being done? So when you put this at the rate timer on top of test, what is happening is this test is passed as a reference to timer. The timer has a wrapper function. It logs start time. It takes difference after executing this function and it is returning that diff which we are printing. That is what is happening. Now let's say, see up till now, whatever functions we have seen, those functions does not have any arguments. So now let's see decorators print arguments. What if your function is having arguments? How would you do it? So let's say I have a function called greet. Good morning. Let's say a very simple function. Right? This is a very simple function. It just says greet. Now I want to write a constructor that prints this particular greet function twice. So let's write a decorator. So if I say def repeat greet and it takes function as an argument, then we have wrapper inside. Okay, now I say func and func. So I'm executing this function twice. Now let's execute greet. What happens? See. So if I say greet, it just execute good morning once. But as soon as I say here at the rate repeat greet, what happens? Oh, we did return wrapper. Okay, so I guess we are not returning the reference to function. That's why. Let me check again and yeah, bingo. So see what is happening here. I'm calling this grid. This grid should print good morning only once. But because we have a decorator called repeat grid here, what it is doing? This grid is passed as an argument to repeat grid, and this inner function is executing it is twice, and we are returning that function here, which is getting executed. So this is not new. Whatever we have done earlier, we are doing the same thing. Now let's see. Let me remove this part for now. And let's say you're something like this. You're passing a name and then the parameter is getting used here. Let's say I'm passing a Python. So it is printing good morning Python. But how you can use it in case of decorator. So if you have something, some parameters passing to your function, how would you define your wrapper or your decorator? See, pay very close attention. Now here, what you would do is you would say star args, comma star star kwrgs. I hope you understand what are things we looked at it in the functions. What it basically says is, it says any any number of parameters they are passed comma separated. Position parameters 1, comma 2, comma 7, comma whatever it could be. And what it says is any number of keyword arguments. So just to prove our point, let us do one thing. Let me comment this out for now. And we'll just print what arguments we are getting. So I'll say for x in args and text. And for x comma y in kwargs dot items print x comma y. I just want to make sure that you understand what are these things. Let's see. At the rate, repeat read. See what happened. It printed Python from this statement. So if I say Python comma 1, comma 2, comma 3, comma 4, it is going to print all the argument that we are sending. So basically star args takes all the positional argument that we are sending, right? All the arguments. You can have n number of arguments. Now then what is this KWARGs? This is keyword arguments. Keyword arguments is when I say x is equal to 1. Let's see. So let me put it here. X is equal to 4. See what happened. This Python 123, this part was printed by this for loop. Star args, star arguments. While because this is a keyword argument, this was printed by this particular thing. So all the keyword arguments you would get in star kw arguments and all your regular arguments are in star. If I say here, see, I got name equal to John. Now last two statements are printed by this for loop. So I hope now you understand what is star argument and what is star keyword argument. So let's just comment this out. And so now what I'm doing is I'm passing those arguments and keyword arguments into this function. Now let's see what happens. Oops. Let's just remove this junk part. One required. Let's see. Name is equal. Oops. Something wrong. Hey, this is the problem. See, this function we are not passing any argument, whereas our greet is looking for an argument. So that was the problem. Now you see. So if you are passing any argument to your functions, you will have to define your. So if you are passing any argument to your functions, you will have to define your decorators this way. So your wrapper should take these arguments and it will pass these arguments. Now why because we don't know how many arguments. See, you could use this decorator with any function, right? So greet is taking only one parameter, but you could use this repeat greet to some other function which might be taking three arguments. So to address those things, we use star args and star keyword arguments. So that any number of argument, whether it is positional, whether you are passing as keyword, everything will be taken care of. Right? Now let's move forward. Now other thing is, see, this function is not returning anything. It's just printing. Let's say if I have something like return formatted hi name. So now my greet function is printing something. It is also returning, but this is not returning anything. If you look at this, what you can do. So what you can do is you can store this as a value and you can just return it. Now let's see. Good morning Python. But if I do print greet and I say Python, see hi Python I am getting. So whatever your function is returning, stored is in a value and your wrapper is also returning that thing. So that's how I know it's a bit involved subject, but yeah, this is what it is. So you have to pay very close attention to what I'm saying. And most important thing is you have to go ahead and write your own decorators. You have to repeat what I'm doing, play with it. Maybe I have only one argument here. What you can do is you can say first name, comma, last name. You are your own decorator using two parameters and see how things are playing because unless you get your hands dirty on this, you are not going to get hold of this because this is an involved subject and would require your attention, and it would really require your time and effort into this. So let's just revise once again what we are doing here. We are writing a function that takes a parameter and it returns a string. Now, how do I implement a decorator for this kind of functions? What I can do is my internal wrapper would be taking star arguments and star star keyword arguments. I already explained you what are these. We created a for loop and we printed them. Now you execute this function. If it is not returning anything, then it's fine. But if it is returning something, you store it here and your wrapper would return it. That's the summary of what we have done. Now let's write one more timer function. We implemented a timer function previously, but let's write another timer function, right? Hmm. This time it would return something. Now let's see how it would work. So let me just put a comment implementing timer version dot. So let's say I want to write a function called check time, and let's write a complicated function for I in range 25. Write another loop for j in range 25. We just want to write print I to the power j. So plain, this is a complicated function. Why we want a complicated function? Because we want it to take some time so that we can log it. Let's just run it without our decorators and see what it does. See, this is what it is printing. Just look at the numbers. Okay, so this is what it is doing. Now, let's write up a decorator. So for writing decorator, let's call it timer one. It would take function as an input as usual. Then we have to define a wrapper. Now wrapper takes arguments. Let's log the time, log nanoseconds. Now let's say value is equal to, we have to execute a function, we pass all the required parameters, and let's say diff underscore nano, difference in nanosecond is equal to time dot minus start. Let's also store difference in seconds or milliseconds. So difference is millis is equal to difference in nano divided by 1000 multiplied by 1000, right? Now let's say print completed. Let's write the name of the function dot underscore underscore name underscore underscore in nanoseconds or difference is in millis. Let's just format it. and whatever is returned in value, just return it, and let's just return a wrapper. And now let's just call check time with our time one. Something is not right. Where remove this. It works fine. Now let's enter it. Time one. Oops. I should be putting it on top of function. Okay. Yep. See. So it executed everything, and what we got was completed check 9 in this many seconds or 4 milliseconds. So this is the benefit or power of constructors. You want to execute your function, but before executing your function, so here we are executing that function, right? You want to do something before it. I want to log the start time. You want to do something after it. I want to log the end time. I want to take the difference. I want to print it. So what is happening here? As soon as I can check time, we check time as a decorator. So what is happening? Time one function is called, and this check time is passed as parameter. And the time one function defines a new function and returns it, which is being executed. So this is how you can write your own decorators. But even if you don't write your own decorator, you should understand when you are using a decorator, you should understand how is it being implemented. Because when you are going into interviews in organizations, they are definitely going to ask you these things. As soon as you clear first level, second level, third level, you will definitely going to. I understand this is a bit advanced level, but if you can answer this kind of questions, then the interviewer will be like very happy, and he would understand that you have a very clear concept on functions. Because see, unless you have very good understanding of functions, you cannot implement your decorator, or you cannot explain decorators even to somebody. So I would again tell you that practice, 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 write your own programs and try to see how they behaves. And if you run into any issues, just drop me a line in the comment and I'll reply you back.